What, if anything, were the gains from the nightmare of Iraq? One of the precious few was the establishment of a convention that Parliament would be asked before military action, not afterwards. There was to be a new democratic norm of ask questions first and shoot later. Our part of the Western world was not to be so wild after all. In truth, back then, it probably wasn't too much of a risk to the warmongers, of which there is no shortage in any generation. After all, at that time, it had been over 200 years since the House of Commons had halted any prime ministerial march to war. However, embarrassingly, in one of its very first tests, David Cameron miscalculated in 2013 and lost a vote to bomb Syria's chemical weapons. The result of that was that President Obama also drew back and instead negotiated through John Kerry's Secretary of State a sensible accord with Russia and the OPCW to destroy Bashar al-Assad's chemical stocks, with the exception of chlorine, which also has legitimate purposes, for example, in water supply. Was that negotiation foolproof? Almost certainly not. But it was more of a mission accomplished than last year's bombing by Trump after a claimed sarin gas attack. The Obama Accord did end up destroying many tons of stockpiles of very nasty weapons. The gains of a parliamentary vote before action are as follows. One, it forces the government to come to Parliament with a worked-through political strategy to accompany a military bombardment. And secondly, it protects prime ministers from their own weakness of being in permanent political hawk to American presidents. After all, we know from the Chilcot report that even George W. Bush was prepared to understand that Prime Minister Blair could not have cornered Parliament into approval of the Iraq War. No such luck for the weak and wobbly Theresa May. She is now at the mercy of the black arts of midnight tweeting from the White House. If the House of Commons has any sense at all, it will put in prior approval that convention into law. This week's parliamentary events make it clear that the government didn't really fear losing the bombing vote itself. There are lots of old, new Labour MPs who rally around the flag, and there are rather more sycophantic young Tories than there were in 2013. What the government really fears is the consolidation of a loss of control over war powers to Parliament, which is why they employed such chicanery to avoid a substantive vote, behaviour patiently and bravely exposed by the House of Commons Speaker. In terms of real accountability, one meaningful vote before the event is worth many hours of questioning raking through the embers of a bombing campaign. One other lesson lost from Iraq is the importance of letting the process of international inspection complete before military action. We don't know for certain which chemical weapons were used in Douma last week, and certainly not by whom. Assad, jihadis, Daesh have all used them in this Syrian civil war. They all have form in the grisly book of war crimes. The Syrian government certainly has the means, but the motivation could lie elsewhere. 2 weeks ago, Assad was winning the civil war hands down, and the President of the United States of America was publicly declaring his intention to withdraw from the country. Now Assad's conduct is under fresh international scrutiny, and the Yanks are not just coming, but they are staying. If the attack was the work of the Syrian government, it represents not just another outrage, but an own goal of epic proportions, and Assad should be placed on trial for stupidity as well as war crimes. In any case, the correct policy for anyone wishing to uphold rather than undermine international law is to wait for the information, take your case to a democratic parliament and to the United Nations, and work for peace. For the tragedy of the people of Syria and all of the slaughtered innocents is not of any shortage of combatants, but a real dearth of peacemakers. And now an opportunity to hear it firsthand what it's like to be a minister in exile. I'm delighted to announce that I'll be joined for my stage shows, Salmond Unleashed, by former Catalonian Minister Clara Ponsati. With 500,000 on the streets of Barcelona last weekend calling for the release of political prisoners, let's turn out a few hundred in Scotland to hear from Clara and her lawyer, Amar Anwar, and how they intend to fight extradition to Spain. The show plays the Caird Hall, Dundee, on Friday the 27th of April, and there are only a few tickets left, and so we're staging a special evening in the Principal Edinburgh George Street Hotel on the following night, Saturday the 28th of April. Both events start at 7:30 and will raise funds for Clara's defence. So let's see you there.